Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this very brief workshop on cybersecurity tips to help you stay protected in an online world. 12 tips are there too. Well, as we move into the year 2022. Um, I'm Michael Ogolor, night professional, and all of the handles below are the various means by which you can reach out to me with questions or whatever it is. Um, as we move on, this workshop is proudly sponsored by Spiffycraft and Omar. Spiffycraft are into beaded jewelries, waist beads, bracelets like what I'm wearing. They made this, and anklets, and all of those. While Omar is a fashion brand into both male and female clothing, unisex, bespoke wears, and all that. So I want this opportunity to thank Sifi Crafts and Omar so much for making this workshop possible and free to the general public. Thank you so much. Now, moving on, for our table of contents, this is what we're going to be dealing with. First of all, what cybersecurity is. Talk about instances of hacks and security breaches, what happened, and what was done to fix them. That will give us an idea. And then we'll move on into cybersecurity concepts, and then move on to practices, and then interesting facts, and then what we're going to be coming up with next, and then we'll call it a day. So really quick, in order not to waste so much of your time, let's just proceed. So first of all, what is cybersecurity? Now, cybersecurity is the application of technologies, processes, and controls to protect systems, networks, programs, devices, and data from cyber attacks. Now, it aims to reduce the risk of cyber attacks and protect against the unauthorized exploitation of systems, networks, and technologies. So, a lot of the time, people think that cybersecurity is about having the best device or the most expensive or the most sophisticated. No, that's just an aspect of it. Now, securing those devices or those processes or those systems goes beyond just owning them. Your smartphone can have the best encryption ever, but if you don't set up things like password lock or your screen lock or your app lock or even um, prevent unauthorized access to your phone or giving your phone to someone else to make use of, it's a whole lot of process for cybersecurity. It's not just owning the hardware itself. All right. So let's just move on. Now, we're going to deal with instances of hacks and security breaches really quick so that this will give you an understanding of an in-depth understanding of what cybersecurity um, is all about. It's not just the hardware, it's not just the technology itself, it involves a bunch of other stuff. Okay, so first of all, we'll talk about the Microsoft Exchange cyber attack. So this year, excuse me, now, the Microsoft Exchange server is an email service. So for those of you who have an Outlook account or use Office 365 email platforms, sometime this year there was a bit of, I think in March, yes, there was a bit of downtime. Certain people, particularly in the US and some select business, had a bit of downtime. Now, by exploiting vulnerabilities in Microsoft Exchange Server, this mass cyber attack affected millions of Microsoft clients in March of this year. Now, 60,000 private companies in the US alone saw disruption from the attack, plus 9 government agencies. So, a lot of the time, cybersecurity attacks might not just be to only to steal information or to destroy something. It could just be that they just want to create chaos by stopping a service that millions of people rely on, you know. So that's one. Next, Twitch data dump. Now, Twitch is a social video platform for gamers, right? So now on the 6th of October, an anonymous person leaked a 125 gig of cache of Twitch data to a torrent site called Fouchix, right? Now, this data contained source codes to their platforms, internal company documents, red teaming tools. Now, red teaming tools are, or red teaming is a team within an organization dedicated to um, exploiting their own systems, finding vulnerabilities so that the internal development team can take those found exploits and build more security around those exploits to prevent others from. So it's a way of having a team within your system try to hack your systems, from within, and any loopholes they find, development team um, writes code or implements code or processes to block that path, right? So all of those tools they make use of to do all of those things were included in that 125 gig cache. And if you know what torrent is, it means it was available to the entire world. And now, what caused this particular problem? Now, this was because of a configuration issue, with one of their servers. And trust me, this configuration issue could have just been maybe for a couple of minutes, couple of maybe few hours, right? And then that gave a third party person access to plant malicious code and gain access to everything. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is that basically this problem was caused by Twitch itself based on their own security hiccup. All right. So this will tell you that, look, you might not know, you might have maybe even a business website or a company website or something. There are people who are constantly trying to break into things, and you understand that shortly. So let's move on. Now, JBS is the world's biggest meat processor, right? And they're in Brazil. Now, they suffered a cyber attack that resulted in temporary closure of operations in US, Canada, and Australia. Now, the attack threatened the supply chain and then caused further food price inflation in the US. Now, it was so bad that even the FBI or the CIA couldn't do anything about these people. Now, this attack was um, more like a holding the entire business process hostage and then demanding for a ransom of 11 million US dollars. Now, this thing went on, and then JBS eventually had to pay that ransom, and then all of their processes was then released for them to continue operation. Now, the criminal group responsible were described by the FBI as one of the most specialized and sophisticated in the world. You can imagine. Okay. So, quickly, let's deal with some concepts of cybersecurity. Now, this year alone, I can I can't even count how many people's WhatsApp accounts were hacked. Excuse me. I can't count how many Telegram accounts were hacked. I can't count how many Instagram, Facebook accounts were hacked. And this is all from simple, okay, let's not call them simple, but in a way, they're simple processes that we could have put in place or looked out for. But you only know to find something when you know it exists, when you're constantly looking for it, right? So let's move on. Now, one of them is social engineering. Now, under social engineering, we have two: phishing and then evil twin hotspot. Now, social engineering is basically the art of manipulating people so they give up confidential information. Okay, typical example. Um, there was a reason why the banks they're releasing disclaimers even with their emails or even in some of their text messages, telling you that they would never ask you to provide certain details over text or something. And that was why when you reach out to customer care in a bank institution for certain issues, they usually will recommend that you visit any of the nearest branch. Okay, so in the past, people have reached out to people pretending to be bank employee is telling you that your account has been blocked, you need to do this, provide this, so that they can, and then you provide that information. The next thing, ah, your money is gone. Stuff like that. So that's what social engineering is. Now, criminals use social engineering tactics because it is usually easier to exploit your natural inclinations to trust, and it is to discover ways to hack your software. Okay. Now, phishing is a type of online scam where criminals impersonate legitimate organizations via emails, text message, advertisements, or other means in order to steal sensitive information. Okay. Now, on the phishing, we have different categories or classifications of phishing. One of them is email phishing. Now, of course, as the name implies, this is an email that is sent with the intention of deceiving you to take action, such as action could include updating a password or clicking on an attachment or a malicious link. Okay. Now, when you click on that attachment, you download that attachment. Automatically, you're downloading maybe a Trojan or a virus that then runs a bunch of things at the background, maybe copies the entire clipboard or your keyboard input over time and keeps uploading to a server. So if you're shopping and you put in your card details, basically it's stealing all of those information you're putting it in and sending somewhere. So those are very tricky. If you do not trust, always be sure that when you receive an email, you open up the email address to see the full email address. And if you don't trust it, do not click on it. Best to delete it or move it to junk or your spam folder. Okay. Now, statistics says 96% of phishing attacks are based and come via emails. So our emails are very important. So you should look out for those things. Now, next is smishing. Okay, so it's still a kind of phishing attack, but based on SMS. So hence the word smishing. So phishing via text message. Now, this fraudulent text may appear to come from a reputable business or government or financial institution, but it has been designed to trick you into revealing personal information. I'm sure many of us have come across these kinds of text messages, right? That would be like a broadcast, we'll have maybe GT Bank or NSCDC, something, something that would make you want to trust the content of the message itself, right? But in most cases, situations like this, when you get these kinds of SMSs, it's best to get in touch with your bank institution to say, or whatever institution it is, to say, you got this SMS, right? To verify with them. And then, if possible, if you don't have access to reaching out to them via um, internet means, it's best to take your time and get to a physical location where you can have these kinds of things sorted out to you. But if we follow practices of these institutions, it's mostly clear the kind of information they can send to you via SMS or email, and the ones they wouldn't normally do. Okay, so always ensure you follow up on um, disclaimers and security update emails from these institutions. Okay, all right. Next is phishing. So just like smishing, this is also a type of phishing. Now, this type of phishing is also known as voice phishing. Now, this has to do with calls. So the caller typically leaves an urgent message, making recipients believe that they will be fined or miss out on a potential windfall, big opportunity if they do not respond immediately, right? So, typical example could be someone calling out to you to say um, to invest in maybe something, and tells you that if you invest a certain amount now, um, within the maybe a 2 hour window, you are entitled to being part of the people or promotional offer where you get to earn back maybe 10 times what you have put in. For example, you put in a 1 million naira, you're getting 10 million naira, and that, those kinds of stuff. They make it look so urgent, such that if you have the money, it sounds too good to be true. In most cases, it's actually too good to be true. It's just scam. So they push you, and the timing is just so that you don't have enough time to actually think or do some research or something. Let me do this and let me do this now, and then you do it, and next thing they disappear into thin air. You don't hear from them again. Your money is gone. Stuff like that. So, typical example. Next is what we call angular phishing. Now, this type of phishing targets social media users. Now, what happens here is bad actors will send direct messages to disgruntled customers, now pretending to be customer service agents in order to obtain personal information or account credentials. I'll give you a typical example. A while back, I had this friend, right, who patronized the business online, um, and then somehow what she received wasn't exactly what she wanted, and then all attempts to reach out to them via phones and text message or even going to their office proved abortive. So she said to go rubbish them on social media, Instagram. So she went and posted all kinds, as you know, basically poured her heart out, described situation and all of that. And then uh, the people or the organization didn't even respond to her. And then a couple of days later, someone reached out to her, um, sent her a DM with an Instagram account with a handle that looks very similar to the brand she had patronized. Now, started um, apologizing for the um, terrible experience she's had and started asking for certain information so they could help track and do that and do that and do that. And then somehow, luckily, we got into a conversation that period, and then she shared her experience with me. And then I like, okay, can I see this SMS or those messages? Can I see those things? So she sent me a screenshot, and then I looked at it, and then I asked her to send me a screenshot of the page, Instagram page of the business itself, and then I realized that the handles are not the same. The difference was, I think, an underscore, a dot, or a dash somewhere in between, you know, or at the end of it. Now, if you don't pay attention, you wouldn't know that this is not the same business because, of course, the logo or the identity, the DP is the same. All of these things can be gotten. So we need to be very careful, especially when going to complain about bad service to to businesses online. It is, as a matter of fact, I recommend it's best you do that in their DM rather than put it in maybe comment section or something, because there anybody can gain access to that, seeing that you are a disgruntled customer, and capitalize on what you're feeling at a point in time to do damage to you. Okay. Next up is pop-up phishing. Now, pop-up phishing, usually this has to do with organizations who have websites. Now, this type of phishing has to do with an organization or business website. Now, fraudulent messages that pop up on otherwise legitimate websites that have been infected with malicious code. Now, the aim is to entice you to click on them to corrupt your device or data, or steal your data, or something else entirely, as the case might be. So, in these situations, I tell people it's not enough to own a website. You have to have credible hands managing it, monitoring it, and implementing security best practices. Now, let me give you a typical example of how much damage can be done. So imagine an organization like, let's see, say Jumia, where we go to shop, right, or Konga. Now, of course, Jumia would use pop-ups to inform you of deals, weekend sales, flash sales, whenever you get there. Now, imagine that Jumia got hacked and the hackers implanted malicious codes that will bring up pop-ups. And now these pop-ups will look legitimate, but when you click on them or you try to touch on them or try to access them, they would basically direct you to a different site somewhere, right? Now, a different site that will probably look like Jumia itself, maybe a replica of Jumia, but which isn't exactly Jumia, right? And then you will actually place your orders there and put in all your details and see that nothing happens. So you've put in all of your card details, you've put in all of your information, and it's all gone. Maybe you forget about it, and nothing happened. And then months down the line, you begin to see deductions from your bank account, and you're wondering what's going on, you know, things like that. So this it's really really serious. Now, a website could also be hacked, just to, of course, to do damage to your clients, to do damage to the organization itself, ruin your reputation. So imagine Jumia got hacked. Imagine how much money they will lose, because most people will probably look for the next reputable online store to do their shopping, you know, and stuff like that. So for business owners, organizations who have websites, be very careful with this particular one. Now, this is a website I currently manage for an organization, right? Now, if you look up here, you would see um, where you have brute force attack preventions. Now, that's 1,467 break-in attempts, right? This was just within a period of 6 months. That's from 6 months from January. Okay. Now, ask yourself this. Now, imagine if one or two or three of these attempts were successful, right? So it could do serious damage. Imagine you're a business where all of your transaction happens on your website. Now, of course, if you have a website, you know that it is your duty to protect your clients' information, protect your visitors, their devices that are used to access your website, and all of those. So it's a very, very big deal, right? So um, apart from protecting yourself as individuals, for those of us who are business owners who provide certain services online, we also need to not just protect ourselves, our data, our platforms, we also need to protect our visitors, our clients, our buyers. And you can only do that with the proper professionals. So you need to be careful who you are bringing in to render certain services to you. Okay. Now, let's review some precautions, some um, stuff. So, one, avoid unknown senders. If you are not sure about who you have received an email or SMS or whatever it is from, ignore it. Do not respond to it. Now, do not trust links or attachments in unsolicited emails. Okay, I'm sure many of us will have received emails with something at XYZ, stuff like that. You wonder what kind of organization is XYZ, you know, stuff like that. So be very careful not to just click on links. Now, clicking on links could run scripts on your devices to break them or steal information or whatever the case may be. Now, be very suspicious of emails marked urgent. Well, like I said, thunder fire the urgent. But, you know, a sense of urgency makes you not think things through. More like a very short time frame means you have to act immediately without doing your research or considering what the pros and cons might be, or even give you room to even reach out to someone that can answer a couple of questions for you, stuff like that. Be very, very, very careful. Now, never give out personal or financial information based on an email update. Don't ever. If you ever have to um, resolve an issue based on with your banking or with any other platform based on that, it's best you go to their physical location if they have one, especially when it comes to financial institution. Okay. Now, when receiving emails from known institutions, go directly to the source instead of clicking on the links in the email. Now, what this means is, um, if you receive an email from a bank, for example, GT, and they've put a link there for you to go to their website to see something, maybe to read something, or whatever the case might be, right? What I'm saying here is that it's best you basically go to the web and visit their website and the section of their publication, whatever it is, to gain access and read whatever update it is, rather than clicking on those links. Particularly if you don't know how to check the links or where the email came from to be sure and verify that it is legitimately from this known institution. Okay. Now, be wary of generic greetings such as dear sir or dear ma'am. Now, if you've noticed, your financial institution, for example, would put your name, for example, dear Michael Ogolor or Michael Ogolor, blah 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 blah. They wouldn't just put dear sir when reaching out to you. So now these are best practices that some of these institutions have put in place over time to ensure that when you receive emails from them, you know that it is from them. Someone who is sitting somewhere trying to send a mass email to different people to try and find out who would bite wouldn't know everybody's name, right? So, of course, they use things as DSR or MAR. So, look out for that. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying every email that comes with DSR or DMR is suspicious, but um, you should be able to look out for one or two things. All right. Now, beware of messages with mistakes in spellings or grammar. A reputable institution would proofread whatever they're sending to you properly, structure it properly, grammatically before it is sent to you. So be careful. Now, don't be lured by deals. Usually too good to be true. Okay. Now, consider finding an email provider that is more secure than the free options. So yes, a lot of our free services, for example, even your Gmail, your Yahoo Mail, your Outlook, all of the free accounts, of course, they have a level of security on them, but they are never as critical or as airtight as a paid subscription. Okay. Next, understand your service provider's policy for tracking and stopping phishing. So a lot of the times, even your internet service providers have policies to help stop some of these attacks. For example, if you have received an email in your inbox, um, and then you open it and you see that it's suspicious, you have nothing to do with this organization or whoever it is has sent it to you. Once you move that email to spam, automatically anything else coming from that address goes to spam to help protect you so you don't have to see them. So most people don't go to spam for anything except when someone tells you, "Oh, I sent you a mail. You didn't deliver. Please check your spam folder." And then you go there. So in most cases, nobody goes there to go look for anything except we need to, rather than just going there to clear out all of the junk. All right. So do not give strangers or unsolicited helpers access to your computer or phones. Now, um, I know that sometimes when we need help on certain things, um, what we want to do might be urgent, and we might be having trouble even with our own devices, trying to get stuff done. And the next thing you want to do is reach out to someone to ask for help. Now, be very careful who you ask for help, okay? Because in a couple of seconds, any information can be stolen from your phone. Okay, I know we've seen movies where people clone people's phones and all of that. Well, some of those things don't happen that fast, not that easy to do, but we also need to be careful. Now, let's handle cybersecurity best practices really quick. Okay, so practice number one. Keep personal information private. Now, in the wrong hands, your personal information can result in identity theft, causing havoc to your finances, your credit, your mental well-being, your reputation. All right. So keep personal information private. Two, take precautions to avoid bad actors. Now, beware of phishing and all the various types there are and how to detect and avoid them. You need to be very, very vigilant. Okay. Um, if you're not sure about something you receive, always find someone to talk to, someone who, um, um, should I say, has experience and professional know how to deal with such things. Now, for your phones, your laptops, your servers, you need to update your software regularly. Now, hackers are constantly looking for opportunities in unpatched software. Now, keep your security, keep your software and apps up to date. It is one of the most important and efficient security tools you have. Now, the reasons why platforms of software developers or social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and all of that, sometimes updates are released like maybe every week. Sometimes you do an update today, the next day you send an update for you to do. Now, the reason is this: these developers are constantly testing their softwares for break-in points, and once they find a loophole, they want to patch it as soon as possible, thereby releasing updates as soon as possible. So they are always working round the clock. As a matter of fact, if you have an application that does not release updates to you periodically, that's a risk. It's a problem. Even Android releases updates for the operating systems. iOS does. Microsoft does. Every major OS operating system releases periodic updates. So do software vendors. They release periodic updates. If you're not getting updates, then something is wrong, right? You are very, very, very susceptible to known security breaches in those softwares or operating systems you are using. So ensure you're using legitimate and up-to-date software regularly. Now, create strong passwords by using passphrases. Now, 218,000 passwords are stolen every day. So if a hacker is able to guess one of your passwords correctly, hmm, well, and that's why we say don't use your birthdays for passwords. Don't use your name, your maiden name. Don't use those things for password, because if someone is able to, through social engineering, get certain information about you, it means they potentially already have your password. Because if you're using your birth year, 1984, as your ATM pin, hmm, sorry. Well, well, one of the issues, trouble you might have, or that we have generally, is the fact that using different passwords, creating different passwords, being able to remember them, and all of those things. But today, on our smartphones, we have what we call password managers. Now, they are secure vaults um, that help you manage your passwords. Okay, so you don't have to remember them. Now, it's ideal that your passwords are words that are not found in the dictionary. And if they have to be found, if they have to be words in the dictionary, you have to substitute some characters, some of the letters, with maybe numbers that look similar. For example, I can be replaced with one, things like that. Okay, so for your password, recommend that your password is at least 8 characters long, right? Should have an uppercase, should have lowercase, should have numbers, should have special characters like dash, question marks, at, hash, percentage, asterisks, brackets, comma, plus, equal to. You can have all of those. Okay. Now, longer passwords are always better. Okay. Most of my passwords are usually at least 10 to 16 characters long. It can even be a sentence with spaces and all of those things. but ensure that all of these special characters and numbers are inbuilt um, into whatever password you're generating for yourself. Okay. Now, use two-step verification whenever possible. Now, two-step verification says that for after you've put in your username and password, the second step verification might be that platform sends you a code to your phone, an OTP where you get to input to continue to complete your signing or to complete your transaction. Most of these things are done with um, so most of that are used to at least a banking system, for example. Sometimes for you to complete a transaction, it's not just putting in your password and PIN. There's a transaction PIN to verify that whatever money you're sending is initiated by you. And after putting that PIN, the bank still sends you an OTP to your registered phone number, which you copy that code and put into complete transaction. In other cases, for some of us, we use hardware tokens. We press on the button, generates random numbers that we input to complete transaction. So also for your social media accounts, you can use two two-step verification applications. For example, have what we call Google Authentication. All right, you can set up second step verification for all of your social media accounts. So what that means is if you're logging into Instagram, for example, after putting your username and password, Instagram will ask you for that second step, which you have to go to your Google Authentication, which you have set up to input those codes. Otherwise, you can't log in. So it's safe to say that if, for example, if for any reason your password or username has been compromised or someone already has access to it, they still won't be able to take over or log into your account because they need the second step verification. Okay, so for all of our important platforms, it's important that we set up two-step verification. Okay, now next, be cautious of free Wi-Fi. Now, free Wi-Fi, yes, everybody wants internet. You want to be able to do stuff, but be careful with free Wi-Fi. A lot of times, um, well, the persons who set up the free Wi-Fi might just want to be generous, do good, give back to society. But then because it's free, you have all sorts of people having access to that Wi-Fi network. And so someone could be in there, um, has set up monitoring to monitor every single traffic that goes in and out of it. And because it's free Wi-Fi, there's no password. So most data going in and out is has barest minimum level encryption, which means they are easy to sniff and break. So meaning that your information is at risk. So what I'm saying is, yeah, free Wi-Fi is cool, but if you're going to be on free Wi-Fi, ensure that um you're not doing any serious transactions, such as online banking or accessing school accounts or logging into social media accounts using those things, because all that traffic, all the information you put in still goes through that free Wi-Fi access point, and you don't know who's in that network, you know, logging everything that's going on. Okay, so very careful. Manage your privacy settings. Secure your cyber footprint by managing privacy and security settings on your devices. Online services and apps. This way, you only share information that is required and nothing more. Now, imagine your banking app, for example, where you go to log in, send payments, or check your account history. Now, those applications don't need access to your phone microphone. They don't need access to your camera. They don't need access to your call logs or your SMS, right? So what you can do is all of those permissions that the application doesn't require, you can actually deny all of those permissions for that particular app, right? That way, should in case it ever happens that your banking app gets compromised by hackers, you're not able to use the application to steal those information from your phone and send to themselves. Okay, so if you don't know how to do that, trust me, you can find certified professional who can actually put you through on those things. Okay. Now, regularly audit apps you have installed, right? Do you really want that app to capture data from your camera, from your microphone, from your keystrokes, right? We covered part of that already previously. So some of these settings you would need to modify uh, when you install applications. Number 11, back up your data. Now, backing up your data can be periodically or regularly. It all depends on how much data you generate from your work per day or how important those data are. Also, there's an issue of hardware and device failure. When you talk about disaster recovery or loss of device or theft. Now, it's really important. Even your mobile phone data needs to be backed up. These days, most of these device manufacturers have implemented certain backup procedures, such as your SMSs, your call logs, and some app data are regularly backed up into your registered accounts, all of those things. But other than that, we have for Android, for example, you have your Google Photos, which periodically, once you have access to Wi-Fi, or depends on how you set it, once you take a picture, automatically that picture is backed up in your Google Photos, which is on the cloud. So even if you don't have those photos on your phone anymore, you can always still access them by your Google account by signing into a laptop or another phone, and you have access to all of the information. Same thing with contacts, same thing with all of those things. But other than some of the already basic data that devices have been designed to automatically back up for us, we also have documents that we receive, that we create, that we send. Some of those things also need to be backed up because, believe me, other than theft, loss of device, these devices are man-made. They fail. So if they fail, what happens? It could mean you completely lose access to all of your data and it's gone. An accident can happen that will cause extensive physical damage to those devices and you can't recover anything from them. Now, what happens if you don't have a backup? So please always ensure you have backup of all of your data. Now, number 12 is very important. Talk to your IT guy. Now, you might not have an IT guy per se. You might just have someone, or maybe a forum that you could go put up a complaint or an issue you have and have those questions answered. And if you have someone who's credible that you can go to speak with to address your concerns or your issue or help you out with these things, even better. Okay. So if anything goes wrong, you know who's responsible. So it's also smart to report security warnings from your internet security software to IT. They might not be able to, or they might not be aware of all the threats that occur until you report to them. Now, this is tailored to organizations, for example. Of course, we work somewhere, and when you notice something is wrong with a network or with a particular service or a software you're using, other than just complain and fuss about it, it's very critical that you take the situation to the persons in charge of IT implementations to look into it. Because a lot of the time, they may not be fully aware of anything that's happening on your own end except you report it. The same thing happens to for us on an individual level. You see something you don't quite understand or something going wrong, you don't understand it. Talk to someone. All right. It's also important to stay in touch when traveling. You know, for those of us who work, you're traveling for business, conference or something. It's important to let your IT department know before you go, especially if you're going to be using public networks to access company resources. Also, it's important to use VPNs when you're accessing um, sensitive information from public networks, right? Now, remember to make sure IT is, well, IT, beware of tech support scams also, all right? So, um, there are professionals and there are professionals. Um, Typical example is this. So I'm a web developer, amongst other things, and then I've had people come to me to say they want this kind of website done. You bill them for what they want, and they tell you they can have someone else do it for them for far cheap. And I'm like, go ahead. Now, months down the line, they come back to me to say and begin to narrate all of their terrible experience and how the person couldn't do what they wanted, or didn't provide the exact thing they wanted for them, and all that and all that and all that. And at this point, they're ready to pay my bills. But then you spent some money already. Then you're coming back to pay my full bill. In most cases, I even add a little bit more for your, stuff like that. So, in as much as um, IT is valuable, the service is valuable, and just like every other thing in the market, there's a price tag for everything. You can't want to go buy a Rolls Royce or a Bentley for the price of a Toyota Corolla. It's not the same. So if you want to buy a Rolls Royce, you should have the money for a Rolls Royce. Also, if you want real professional help, you should be able to afford it, right? And if you are not financially ready for it, don't start it, because everybody wants to make money one way or the other. Okay, so you need to be extremely careful when doing these things. Now, I published an article recently talking about how to go about handling a project. If it's an IT project you want to implement but you don't know how, you have to hire a professional. Do your research. Basic research will give you an idea on how much this project will take, how much time it will take, you know, and then you're able to drop a budget, able to drop a timeline for yourself, able to, arm yourself with certain information before you begin to reach out to professionals to talk to, and then before you settle on who you want to offer that service to you. All right, so we need to be very careful. There are IT guys and there are IT guys, right? Okay. So really quickly, um, well, if this was a live event, this is where we go on to interactions, but no problem. Thank you so very much um, um, for being a part of this little workshop. I'm certain you probably have questions. You can reach out to um, me through any of these links or my personal links that were at the beginning of the presentation. You can rewind all the way back to look for it. Now, quickly, let's just deal with some very interesting facts. Now, a lot of IT technology were developed, or even engineering were developed from studying animals. For example, aeroplanes came about by studying how birds fly. Um, Scientists developed ways to detect storms by studying elephants. Okay, so did you know elephants can sense storms? Pandas do not hibernate. Cats use their whiskers as feelers. Dogs can smell your feelings, and this is one of the reasons why dogs are used as therapeutic or health sensing, whatever the case might be. So you must have come across movies where um, before someone has a breakdown, maybe a diabetic patient, the dog begins to bark, right? And such actions tells the person that, look, you're about to have an attack. It's time to take your shot. Something like that. You know, kangaroos. Well, there are more kangaroos than humans in Australia. Just so you know. Now, koalas are even more lazy than cats. Yes, extremely lazy. Now, clearly, animals know more than we think. They think a great deal more than we know. Irene and Pepperberg said that, and it's one of the reasons why you have birds or animals migrate shortly before a change of weather. Now, some of those things we don't even know until they're already upon us. Okay. So coming up next, we're going to be having website development training. So a couple of people have been asking, okay, I want to, isn't it possible for me to be able to reduce cost to my business by managing my website by myself or building one by myself? So yes, it's possible that you as a small business owner or an entrepreneur can um, build your website yourself and manage it yourself. But it's going to be something simple. It's not going to be as complex and sophisticated as what we usually do. Um, I've done a little bit of work to put um, all of these things together. So, in most cases, if you have a Google account, you already have access to doing certain things, right? And so, basically, that's the next thing. We'll keep um, you all up to date using all of our platforms, websites, and social media, as the case may be. All right. So thank you so much for being a part of this workshop today, and catch you on the next one. Thank you.